I'm Sonia Goins. Crohn's and colitis are considered inflammatory bowel diseases. 1.6 million Americans are affected by the conditions. Joining me now is Dr. Sandeep Arora with Minnesota Gastroenterology. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you mostly work with pediatric patients, right?
That is correct.
First of all, can you explain what is inflammatory bowel disease?
So inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD, is basically a chronic, that is a lifelong inflammatory condition that can present either as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis.
Now, is it hard to diagnose young people?
Yes, sometimes the symptoms of inflammatory bowel disease may not be the textbook or the classic symptoms, as we say. The classic symptoms, of course, would be like having abdominal pain, diarrhea, blood and mucus in the stools, losing weight, not growing very well, those kinds of things. But oftentimes they could be so subtle that it may not be brought to the medical attention. Unless you are paying close attention, for example, a child who has not been growing for a while or who has been becoming pale over the years, then you would kind of miss the subtle clues that would go in the direction of Crohn's or colitis. It is widely understood that there could be a delay of anywhere from 6 months to 2 years from the onset of disease to the diagnosis that is made.
I know, and then for parents, I mean, this has to be confusing. How do you know if your kid has like something as simple as like, IBS as opposed to inflammatory bowel disease or like a flu bug? What would you tell them? What's the difference?
Oftentimes, having a flu bug would have symptoms that should resolve over a period of time. But if you see that the symptoms have resolved and they come back and they come back, and over a period of time, if you put all the times together, you would see that something is not right. For example, a child who used to be so active once upon a time has now become so tired, is lethargic all the time, would rather stay homebound and not go out and play with your friends, who's been losing his appetite, who's just been complaining his joints have been aching. There have been some low-grade fevers even though nobody in the family has been sick, like 99 to 100 fever, is complaining of canker sores in the mouth, having night sweats. And all of a sudden you see, wait a minute, this child is not growing. I mean, he's not eating as well as he used to be. His joints have been aching. So these are the kinds of symptoms that you're looking for that could be much earlier than the classic presentation, like having diarrhea or cramping pain or losing a ton of weight.
Well, and I know earlier you were saying that kids are being diagnosed at really young ages now.
That is correct. So previously we were taught that Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis could present in teenage years or when you were between the ages of 40 and 60. But now we are seeing much and much younger presentation, kids who are like 2, 3, 4, 5. So it can present at any age actually. The foundation for the disease is kind of laid at birth. So either you have genetic mutations or genes transmitted through the generation, or new ones may have developed when you were being conceived.
Wow, so there is no cure for Crohn's or colitis. So
that is correct.
You can only manage the symptoms. How do you manage the symptoms when it comes to pediatric patients?
So the important first thing is to make sure that we have the right diagnosis. So when you go to see a pediatric gastroenterologist, we take into account the symptoms, do some laboratory testing, endoscopy, colonoscopy, and once we have confirmed then this is a diagnosis, then we sit down with the families and then discuss various treatment options. The important thing to understand is that even though every patient may have the same diagnosis, they do not have the same disease. So you have to tailor therapy to individualized patients. And there are multiple different options. So there is enteral nutrition, there is coating medications, some brief role of steroids, immunosuppressives, biologics. So depending upon how your disease presents, what kind of aggressive nature you have to the disease, we sit and have a discussion about that.
Well, I know you told me something interesting while we were talking before the show, that you're no longer going with steroids as the first line of defense in treating this.
Yeah. Since the inception of the first biologic around 1998, that was infliximab or Remicade, the treatment options have been mostly non-steroidal and focusing on mucosal healing. And since then, we have a lot of biologicals which have been targeting the TNF-alpha pathway and the non-TNF, the non-classic pathway, along with other medications. But yes, steroids are only used briefly just to induce some remission, and only when you have intermittent flares, that is exacerbations of the disease. They are no longer used for maintenance treatment.
I have to ask you, I mean, if I was a parent and someone told me, hey, my kid has Crohn's or colitis, I'd kind of freak out a little bit. What do you tell parents?
We tell them that this is a chronic or a lifelong condition. It is very, very treatable now. And the real scare comes from the fact when people go on the internet and they look at the steroid side effects, they really get scared and they are worried that their child might end up being on steroids for the rest of their life. Also, some of the medications like the immune suppressives can also have some side effects. So the best thing is to sit down and have a discussion as to what exactly are the goals of treatment, what are we trying to achieve through it, what would happen if we do not treat the condition. So there could be some complications. So depending upon that, then we devise a plan which is kind of suited or tailored to your needs. But it's definitely quite a devastating experience for a lot of families when they have the first diagnosis, yes.
Right, and how do you even treat a patient as young as 2? I mean, can you do a colonoscopy on a 2-year-old patient?
Yes, we can do colonoscopies in younger patients, yes.
Wow.
And we do biopsies. So, and these biopsies are then what help us making a diagnosis along with the symptoms and the lab tests.
Well, you don't treat infants with the same drugs as adults, do you? Or how would you treat like a 2-year-old?
Sometimes even 2-year-old children may have either diseases which are equally aggressive or more aggressive like adults. So yes, often we have to use biologic medications like Remicade or Humira even in young children.
Wow.
Yeah, just because the pathophysiology of the disease does not change much in children who are younger or in older adults. And as I said, sometimes it could be even more aggressive.
Right, and there are no there are a lot of things that can contribute to this, like the environment, your diet. What are some other things that can attribute to inflammatory bowel disease?
So the basic 3 things would be the genetics, that is the genes that you have acquired or new ones may have happened, the dysregulated or an abnormal immune response, and some kind of a trigger. The trigger often is the normal bacteria that reside in your colon. So your immune system should not be looking upon these bacteria as being something foreign or something harmful. But because of this genetic background, your immune system gets dysregulated. It begins to look upon these bacteria and mounts an immune response specific to your gut, which kind of initiates the chronic or the lifelong inflammatory process. So we do not fully understand what this trigger might be for different individuals. And there are lots of gaps in knowledge, and that's what we are trying to understand about the disease.
Anything on the horizon as far as treatment? Do you see any new treatments coming out?
The new treatments right now are mostly focusing on the non-TNF alpha. So TNF alpha is the main inflammatory chemical that rises when you have inflammatory bowel disease. And for the longest time, we had medications like Remicade or Humira, but now we are focusing on the non-TNF, like the Entyvio, the Stelara, and some more like etrolizumab, which is coming out in phase 3 trials. So a lot of focus has been happening on these other alternative pathways that could be equally important.
Okay, lastly, what would you tell the general public about these diseases? I know you can't get it, it's not contagious.
It's not contagious, and this is just like any other autoimmune or an immune-mediated condition. It falls in the same category as your lupus or autoimmune hepatitis or those kinds of conditions. So they need to be treated. And with treatment, you can actually have a good quality of life like any other person who did not have the disease.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having me over.
Okay, well, we'll be right back. 12-year-old twins, Jack and Brody Windham, were recently diagnosed with an advanced form of Crohn's disease. They join us now with their dad, Court. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Okay. Dad, I know this had to be traumatic when you heard, your twins, were diagnosed with this chronic condition.
Yeah, it was definitely a life-changing event for us.
What were the symptoms that they were experiencing?
A lot of abdominal pain, frequent diarrhea. They were sleeping a little bit more than normal than they had been in the past.
Now, boys, was it very painful? What were you experiencing?
A lot of stomach aches and a lot of diarrhea.
Yeah.
You too?
Yes, same. And then sometimes blood in the stool.
Wow. Now, you guys were telling me it took you like 2 years to find out that you actually had Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That what happened?
Well, the symptoms were very infrequent. We didn't see them very often. Diarrhea was something that we felt was somewhat normal considering that they were kids and they would get into junk food at times, and the abdominal pain would come and go, but it was always something that we always were told growing up that those are growing pains. And so I think we were pretty socialized to not see the issues so much. But when we went to our second pediatrician appointment and noticed that they hadn't been gaining weight, it was another sign that we needed to get some things checked out.
Now, I know recently you guys had to do what's called enteral nutrition. Can you explain to folks what that is?
It's like a plastic kind of rubbery tube that each night me and my brother would have to stick it. We had put it in our nose, at least like the back of your throat. Like if you, at night, like if you open your mouth wide enough, you could see in the back of your throat, and then all the way to your stomach. You'd have to like put the tip to your nose, to your ear, to your belly button, and then you mark it right there. And that's how, when you're putting in, that's where you stop, where you marked it.
So basically, they were on nutrition shakes and being fed through a nasal gastro tube, and they couldn't eat any food. What was that like?
It's kind of hard, especially during like dinner time. We'd usually go in our basement and play kendama is what we usually played.
Or did.
Yeah, and during lunch we usually our advisory teacher's homeroom,
Miss Eshelman.
she let us stay in her room during lunch because it was kind of hard being by everybody while they're eating all their food, and so we just played kendama there too, or went on our phones.
Wow. Brody, what was it like telling your friends that you couldn't eat? What was that like?
A lot of them didn't know what it was. Like a lot of them, like one of my friend, like he didn't really understand it, so he didn't really know what to think of it. Like when the first day when we went to the doctor to put it in, they had to show us how to put it in and stuff, and I didn't want to take it out because it wasn't uncomfortable. I feel like it would hurt even more if I took it out. And so I wore it to school the next day, and I mean, a lot of people didn't understand what it was. Like people would walk up and say, "What is that?" And I'd have to explain to them, which was pretty hard because I'd have to do it to pretty much everyone that would see me. And the first day was the hardest, and then it kept on getting easier and easier.
Yep.
How did it make you feel to know that you have Crohn's disease?
I first didn't really know what it was.
So I didn't know what to think of it.
Yeah, and then right when we found out, we watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and that's what kind of inspired us of making YouTube videos for people like us that just started Crohn's disease and help them through their journey of going through the tube, or if they're doing like steroids and stuff.
Right, so these are YouTube stars, and we're going to show their videos when we're done with this segment, but that's really a good thing that you guys are advocating not only for yourself, but for other people too. What would you want people to know about this disease?
It's an autoimmune disease, and that it's a lifelong disease too. As of right now, it can't be cured, and
but it can be helped.
It's inflammatory from the mouth to the anus, and that you can have flares, which is like when your inflammatory parts in your stomach start to don't know what it's called, but like starts to hurt even more, and you can, yeah.
Wow. Well, Cord, I know this disease affects not only your twins, but the whole family.
Yeah, it's true. We had a lot of adjustments early on with our eating habits. The children really struggled with being around the smells of food and watching their little brother and sister eat, or when we had family meals. It was a pretty strong disconnect for us to be able to, have those family moments that everyone, I think, probably takes for granted. Not everyone, but it certainly is something that you have a stronger appreciation for once you have half your family disconnected from the eating part of the socialness of aspect of being a family.
Now, I know one particular time it got really hard, and you actually put the nasal gastric tube in your nose, too.
Yeah, Brody was having, I think, a more difficult time early on with the idea of having to do that task every night. And it was becoming more and more difficult for him, and one night it was a breaking point that he couldn't do it anymore. It was to me a moment of, if you need me to do this with you, I'll do it. And I don't know how they did it for 60 days, to be honest. It was crazy. I got it down, and it was impossible to feel comfortable. And so for these two guys to do it every night for 2 months, and the lack of sleep that they had to endure, and the beeping of the machine, and just the general discomfort of having something in your throat that you can't get rid of, it makes a parent pretty proud.
Going forward, what are you guys doing now?
We decided to go vegan, and so that's what we're doing now. And we've only had like one stomach ache since we've been off about like 3 weeks now.
Well, good. I'm glad you're feeling better. Last question. What would you tell other parents who are like their kids are newly diagnosed with this disease?
The scariness will pass. I mean, there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of information out there. The doctors are doing their best to practice medicine to find a sweet spot, but everyone's going to be different. So I think it's best that they try to educate themselves early on the medicine options that are available, the multiple versions of what they're called, because there's a generic version, there's a branded version, and those things can be very confusing and intimidating to the process. So I think that the best that they can do is to watch YouTube videos and try to understand what options are available to them, and then to know that they may need to change and practice their own path with the kids till they can find a place where they seem healthy.
And are you hopeful?
I think we're hopeful. I mean, we know that medicine is an option for us right now. We'd like to avoid any impacts on their immune systems with medications, even if that's a positive thing, until we know that it could be a diet issue relative to some of the GMOs and hormones that are going into our food. And when we were growing up, we didn't have these issues, and now 2 of our kids do, and everyone else is changing their diet, and they're gluten intolerant or celiac disease. And so we would like to understand a little bit more about what is impacting our bodies and our ability to grow.
Well, great. Well, you guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be right back, but before we go, we're going to check out one of their YouTube videos.
Hi, I'm Brody Winjum. And I'm Jack Winjum, and just a couple weeks ago we got diagnosed with advanced Crohn's disease. And we are going to be sharing our journey with Crohn's disease and putting Crohn's in remission.
And what are we going to do today?
And we are going to show you how to put the tube in, do the pH strips, and put all the sticker things on. Should I do it?
Talk about what you got in front of you.
This is the NG tube. The first like 3 or 2 times, it feels like it's not supposed to be there because it's not, and it's not comfortable. But after the first couple of times, you feel like you know how to do it, and it's way easier. Yeah. So first, what you do is you grab the tip and you put it in the tip of your nose. Then you bring it to your earlobe, hold it right there. And then you bring it in right here in the middle of your belly button and right where like your ribs meet. Right. And then in the middle of that you mark it. So mine is 48. Yeah. Already marked mine before. Okay. Then once you have that done, you rub the tip of right here on the lubricating gel. It just helps it like go
Move
down
fast.
so it's not just all dry. Okay. And next, when you put it in, I lean over and open your mouth because it's kind of hard to breathe with your nose when you're putting it in. And sometimes it just hits a wall in the back of your nose. Either just take it out and put it back in, or keep moving it around. It will kind of feel weird, but it will eventually go through. It just went to wrong path. Oh, put too much on. It won't go in. Did you get yours? And it helps to drink water, so it will help it feed through. And then you put the NG strip on there. Reese, can I please have my water? No. And then you take the NG strip thing on.
Try the other side.
I feel like it would feel different. Put it right on your nose. It's cold. And then take the bottom thing off. And then attach it to the tube. It's okay, Jack. And then you put this thing on. Some people, it depends what you like, but you can use these. Or there are these giant like bandage strips that you can put on it.
You put that on your whole face.
Yeah. And then there are I can't find the other ones. But then there's another clear kind of like wrap that you can put on it. Then you put it on the side of your cheek. Then peel it off, not all the way. And you make sure it's not like pulled tight, so because you don't want the tube to come off. Because if it comes off, you're gonna have to put a new one in. Because if some of it comes out, you can't have it. You can't push it back in. So, and then you check your NG strip after you put the stuff on. You do is you grab your syringe. But most likely you'll know if it's in the wrong place, because if it goes into the wrong place, like your lungs, once a little bit of liquid comes out, you'll cough if it goes into your lungs. So, and then take it out. Put the cap back on. Grab your NG strip. And mine was red. And I'll show them.
So what are you checking for?
To see if it's in the right place, and you want to be
Well,
these
for us.
1, 3, 5, 2, 4, and 6. Those are the main colors that you want to be in.
strip, where'd it go? Sorry. No, come out. Oh, it's turning orange. That's good.
So it looks like he has got some color there that works.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now what do we do?
You go and hook the. Oh yeah. Set the machine up. So I'll grab my bag. Can you grab mine? Can you help me?
It's always important to clean up after yourselves, isn't it?
And then for us, they had to give us a certain amount of bottles. This is 3 bottles. I don't think we did yours yet, Jack.
Yeah, we did.
I don't think we primed this. I don't think we primed both.
Well, show us how to hook up the bag.
Here's the machine. Turn it on. Hold it down until it makes the loud buzzing sound.
What's in there?
Pediatric peptide.
Pediatric peptide.
It's like different than you'd get at the store. It's like more like amped up in calories, and there's more medicine in it.
And so what's that going to do for you?
It's gonna help us
gain
get
weight
remission.
and
Get in remission.
in remission and gain weight and get taller.
So you put this around like the neck thing, strap it, and then there's this hook that you can put around it so it doesn't fall off. Should I start my feeding?
Sure.
Actually, I'm not gonna start right now because I want to go do some stuff downstairs.
Just go ahead and show it. Just hook it up.
To me? I don't want to start my feeding right now. Then you
We're filming. Yeah, you do.
put it right here, pull back, and you close it. Make sure not to slam it, or else this, they call it a door, it'll shut off. Screw on both of them. Make sure the one that you're not using is screwed on tight so it doesn't come out. You can screw this.
Oh, Jack, what are you doing over there?
Prepping my bag.
What are you prepping it for? What are you doing?
Because you don't want any air in the bag.
So you can air bubbles out? Okay.
Or else it'll give you like a stomach ache. Bloated, make you bloated. Okay, so when we have the machine in, everything inside of it, and it's in here, you push rate and dose. Your dietitian and doctor will give you a rate and dose. My rate is 100, and my dose is 711. Then you'd go to volume. Every time you start a new one, you go to volume, you clear, total, clear. So let's say you have to pause in between of feeding. You know how much there is if you have to put more in. Once you did that, you strap it in. Actually, I'll strap it in here. Then, once everything's done, wait, I need to. There's gonna be like a tiny opening right here that you put it through, so you don't, so it doesn't go through the bag. Once you have everything set and the thing's tied and twisted in, you can push run. Can you put up here? You have to click it once, and once if you has the running button, it means it's running. Sometimes it will say stuff, but when the person comes over and talks to you, you'll understand it more. You zip it. You need to make sure it's sitting upwards so the bag can sit down, because if it wasn't, once you get to like the end of the run, there's going to be stuff on top of it, and it won't go down into the bottom where the stuff comes in.
So could you take that with you to school? And
You could take it with me to school, but I decided I don't want to have to wear it all day, so I just drink the bottles. Once you'll get hungry, and you don't like them at first, but once you're hungry, you'll want to eat them, and they start tasting good. Thank you for watching our video.
1.8 years. That's how long it takes for someone with IBD to be diagnosed from their first symptom. Ethan Horace knows exactly what I'm talking about. He was diagnosed with Crohn's in September 2016. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sonia.
Yeah, so I mean, did you have a lot of symptoms when you were first diagnosed?
The funny thing about it is when I had the symptoms, 2 weeks before the day I went in, I had the symptoms. I was just like, maybe I got food poisoning, or maybe my stomach just acting like I was bloated. And then my boy was like, you should go to the hospital. He's like, you're not looking too good over there. And so, yeah, I think I had symptoms before I even knew.
Wow, and how long did before you got the official word that you actually have Crohn's disease?
I went into the doctor probably about 2 hours, 3 hours later. They was like, you know what Crohn's disease is? And I was like, you talking to me? He's like, yeah. He's like, we believe you have Crohn's disease. And that's that same day.
What went through your head when they told you that?
I was like, how come I never heard this disease before? And then they told me it was a digestive disease, and that I'll have to start watching what I eat and just certain inflammatory things, just things of that nature.
What kind of symptoms did you have?
A lot of bloating, and with that came like no gas was coming out. I couldn't really take a number 2. You know what I mean? Hot flashes sometimes was really weird.
Wow, and for people who don't know, you're also a radio personality on KFAI.
Well, if y'all want to bring that up, I'm a radio personality on KFAI.
Yeah, he's also a music promoter, and you were telling me how difficult it was for you to, go on these junkets and still have to deal with this.
Yeah, sometimes I would go places, I have to use the bathroom like 15 times, like an hour. People be like, yo, what's going on? And I'd be like, sometimes you don't want to tell people your personal business, so it's like, you don't really let them know, them like get in your face about it. It's like, yo, this is what's going on, so I need to use the bathroom. But okay, I understand.
Yeah, this is a mostly Jewish Mediterranean disease, but there are a lot more African Americans that have Crohn's or colitis, and people don't want to talk about it.
It's weird because until I knew I had the disease, I didn't even know that black people even had the disease along with that. And so it's like now that I have it, I'm hearing about it more, I learned that more brothers and sisters do have the disease. So it's kind of funny that you pulled me into this, and it's like, here we are. You know what I mean?
And I know you want to spread awareness about this too.
Definitely. I think awareness is important because, like I said, I didn't know. And I might be a jokester and all that, but at the end of the day, it's very serious. And people need to know. I feel a lot of us, kind of like I did, like, oh, it's just my stomach or whatever. And it's like really like, no, you should go get checked out because you never know.
Are there days where you get depressed? Because I know I have Crohn's disease too. And there are days where, I get depressed,
I don't like the D word. That's how I am. I don't like. There's days where I feel stressed from it, definitely. But, you got to keep on pushing. This is journalism. Stories never stop. The world never stops. So you can't really sit down. I got kids, you know what I'm saying? So I can't stop.
Going forward, have you had to change how you go about doing your job because of this?
I like to get things done in spurts because I know at some point I might have to use the restroom. And so, like, certain foods, they'll go, like, right through me. Like, I ate pickles the other day.
Really?
I almost pooped in my pants at work. And so therefore, I knew it was coming. I could feel it. I had to work faster to be able to be like, hey, I need to go use the bathroom. If I would have waited, it would have been really bad. If I would have slowed down, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, you got to change a lot of things besides just how you work, you know what I'm saying? What's
the number one question that people ask you about this disease?
They be like, what does it affect? What does it do? What does that mean? They'd be like, you have Crohn's disease? I'd be like, yeah, like, so what does that really mean? And I'll be like, well, it's inflammation of this, and and they're like, oh. And it's funny, most people I talk to about, they actually know somebody that has it now. Like I said, it's weird. Like, before I was diagnosed, I never knew anybody that had anything. And then even like, after I told my homegirl that I was diagnosed, both of them was like, you should talk to Sonia Goins because we believe that she's involved. I was like, y'all ain't never tell me this before, but like we ain't know you had the disease before, so you know.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people that don't really want to talk about it. I know when I was first diagnosed, I didn't want to talk about this, but you seem like you're pretty open to telling people what's going on.
I don't like telling people my business, but I feel like for awareness, it's very important because like when you see children with this, I feel it's more important than me because I couldn't imagine being a child having to deal with that. So I don't mind opening up to talk about it for stuff like that and just for awareness in general.
So right now you're just doing pretty well though.
Right now I feel like I'm doing pretty well. Sometimes like I might eat a new food and not know something, like the pickles. I didn't know pickles was messed up for me, and I found out the hard way. So it was like, okay, add it to the list, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I'm doing way better than I was 3 months ago.
Oh, we're glad to hear that.
Yeah, appreciate that, Sonia.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Sonia.
Okay, we'll be right back.
All right.
You don't have to fight Crohn's and colitis alone. The Crohn's Colitis Foundation has a lot of resources. Joining me now is Tova Dominic. She is with the Minnesota Dakota chapter. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so people really they're not in this alone. You guys have web seminars and a lot of patient support things.
Yes, yeah, we have a really fantastic website. So whether you're newly diagnosed or just looking for more information, there's a plethora of information you can find on the website, but also locally at the Minnesota chapter, we are having a half-day education program for patients every spring. We also have education programs for professionals and local support groups, both for pediatric patients as well as adults. And then, of course, we have all of our events. So I like to say we have an event for everyone. So whether you're young, old, looking for something active, or something to just have fun or meet other people at, we've got an event for you.
We're also gearing up for a good big walk, Take Steps.
Yes.
And it's at a new location this year.
It is, yes. So Take Steps is our first fundraising event of the year. It is on Sunday, June 3rd, and like you mentioned, at a new location of CHS Field. So you can see a baseball theme going on with our chapter here, but it's all good fun. And I like to say Take Steps is more about the event and the activities than any kind of walking. We'll do some laps around the concourse and the field, but it's more just an opportunity to get those in the community impacted by Crohn's and colitis together.
And people can form teams.
Yep, people can form teams. You can walk as an individual, but if you're having people come out with you, we like to say form a team. It can be 2 people, 200 people, and anywhere in between. And there's no fundraising minimum. We just like to have this as a community event where you can make a self-donation, you can go out and fundraise, you can participate in whatever way feels best for you.
And my favorite is Team Challenge. You know, if you want to run a half marathon or less, you can join Team Challenge.
Yes, I mean you are the expert on Team Challenge over me for sure because of how many events you've done. But yes, we can help train you to run or walk a half marathon, even a 5K, a 10K. We do certain events across the country. You can also choose to race an orange in your own community event. Right now, we are recruiting for our Napa to Sonoma half marathon, as well as the Rock and Roll Savannah half marathon in November. But like I said, if you just want to go and do your local 5K, you can do that for us too and be able to race in our orange singlet and also raise money for the foundation.
And trust me, folks, if I could do a half marathon, anyone can do one. And then another fun event is called Spin 4, and I haven't done that one yet, so I might try that one out.
Yes, yeah, it's a really fun event, and again, you don't have to be like an experienced spin rider or instructor to do this. It's pretty easy to do. It happens during Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week, so it's going to be on Saturday, December 1st this year at Cycle Bar in Uptown. And essentially you form a team of 4 people, and it's a relay of either you're all spinning together or you're taking turns spinning, and it's just a fun event. They play fun music. We have some corporate teams, some friend and families participate, and I actually had never done a spin class before, and I did it, and then I kind of got hooked on spinning, so it's a really fun event.
I think I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
And you're also doing something really fun for millennials, right?
Yes, yes. So we are reinvigorating the Minnesota chapter's Young Professionals group. And we don't want it to just be about happy hours. We're going to come up with some fun activities to do. Probably to start, we'll meet about 4 times a year. So right now, we're just looking for those interested in being invited to the events, being on our email list. So you can find that information on the website, which is Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org, and then you can find your chapter by searching zip code for Minnesota. And you can find the information, and we'd love to have anyone who's saying between the ages of 21 and 40, just because some of our events will be around drinking, but not all of them. And just a nice way for young professionals and young IBD patients to connect with one another in a less formal setting than a support group sitting around a table. We want to have fun together.
Okay, I'm too old. But all these are fun events, but really these events raise money, and it's for a good cause, for research. You know, the organization has raised millions of dollars.
Yes, yes, we are on a mission to find a cure. That is our mission, to find a cure, and also better treatments for patients and to support our patients. But truly, we are trying to find what it is that we can help patients, whether it's getting better at diagnosing it, better medications, alternative medications. For the first time ever, the foundation is funding some non-traditional research. So we're looking into diet and nutrition, how stress affects patients, how viruses affect patients. So it's an exciting time, but we can't do this research without the dollars. So that's why we have all these fundraising events for the chapter.
Right, so the Crohn's Colitis Foundation has really been a lifesaver for me personally. So I'm appreciative of everything that you guys do. But before we go, I just want to tell folks to not let Crohn's or colitis dictate how they live their lives. There are so many resources. We're going to put that information up on the screen. What's the website? Tell folks.
Sure, it's Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
Okay, we'll put that on the website, and you can also call Tova. We'll put her phone number up too. But anyway, we really appreciate you watching, and hopefully you learned something about Crohn's and colitis. Thank you.